everyone, how y'all doing? Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of November. So I only read a total of 6 books in the month of November. Definitely not as much as I usually do, which is totally fine, but I did have like a huge TBR and I didn't read most of the books, but it's fine. It's fine. I'm not upset. I'm a little bit upset, but it's fine. But I did really enjoy all of the books that I read this month, so I'm super excited to talk about them all with you guys. So first I'm going to talk about the 3 romance books that I read, and then I'm going to get into the fantasy books that I read. It's like a pretty even split. Like I read 3 romance books, I read 3 fantasy books, which is so unlike me. I never read this much fantasies, so let's just get right on into it. Okay, so the 3 romance books that I read in the month of November were actually all part of a companion series. So it is the Jensen Brothers series by Sophie Selvin. So first I reread 10 Rules for Faking It. This is obviously the first book in the series. This was one of my favorite books of last year. The romance in it is just so cute and done so incredibly well. I really enjoy the writing style as well, but the best part of this book for me has always been the anxiety rep. Our main character Everly has pretty severe social anxiety, and I also have social anxiety, and so I heavily related to everything that she was going through and talking about, and there were so many lines and things that she said that just really resonated with me. This is the best book I've read with anxiety rep in it, like the one that is closest to my actual anxiety. It just does such a phenomenal job of it, and I just love how the love interest interacts with her anxiety and understands it. It's so good, and it is definitely, spoiler alert, my favorite in the entire trilogy. I also decided to tab the books this time, or at least the first 2, so they're quite heavily tabbed, which is super exciting. It is such a cute book. I just realized I haven't talked at all about what it's about, so I'll give a really quick short synopsis. So this book basically follows our main character Everly. So we kind of open the book and she finds out her boyfriend's been cheating on her, so she goes to the radio station where she's working at, and she's kind of ranting about the situation to her best friend, who is also the DJ at the radio station, all the while not realizing that they're actually on the air because her best friend was going to surprise her by singing happy birthday for her on the air. So everybody who was listening to the radio show that morning got quite a show that they were not expecting, and because of this it kind of all tumbles into something so big. So to kind of bring more attention to the radio station, since everybody seems so invested in Everly's story, the boss Chris, who is the love interest, and he's also the other POV in this book because there are 2 POVs, he comes up with a plan to do like a bachelorette type of thing where they pick people for Everly to go out on dates with, and then she'll write blog posts and talk about it a little bit on the air, and then by the end of it she will pick her favorite of the dates and to go on a second date with that person. But things don't go quite according to plan because obviously Everly and Chris start having feelings for each other, and that kind of puts a wrench in their plans. But it is so cute, so good. Honestly, cannot recommend it enough. I adore this book. So I was really excited to finally move in to the other 2 books because I had not read them before. So we have the second book, How to Love Your Neighbor. This one came out I believe in January of this year. I also tabbed this one up a bit as well, but this one was also so good. I honestly feel like nothing can compare to that first book just because of the anxiety rep, but the romance in this book was also super cute. So we basically have our female main character Grace, and she is an interior designer, and she moves into her grandparents' old house that they left for her in their will, and it's kind of her plan to fix it up and create a cozy home for herself. But then her neighbor Noah, who is Chris's brother, keeps asking her if he can buy her house because he wants to use the area for a pool, and she instantly does not like him. She wants to keep her house and he just won't stop pestering her. But then through a series of events they have to end up working together, and they form this friendship and obviously eventual relationship, and it is just so cute. And I'm a huge interior design fan, so I loved reading about all the interior design aspects of this book as well. My only like real complaint about this book, I guess, which isn't really a complaint, is that on the back it says that it's like a slow burn romance, but I feel like the romance actually happens quite early on. Like I feel like 10 Rules for Faking It is a true slow burn romance, and this one just wasn't. And so I didn't really love that they said slow burn romance in the description because I was expecting it to take a lot longer to get to. But regardless of that, I still really enjoyed the romance, and I like the way that it all unfolded. I was just kind of going into it expecting for the romance to happen like way later, and it just didn't. But I still heavily enjoyed this book. I loved the romance romance, and I'm happy that it actually started sooner than I thought it was going to. It was just so much fun, and I really enjoyed learning more about Noah, who we did get to see in 10 Rules for Faking It, and seeing him get his own story was really fun. And I really liked the addition of Grace as well, and I loved all the cameos of Chris and Everly from the first book in this one. It was really satisfying to see, so I really loved this sequel. And then we have the third book, which is not out yet. I believe it comes out in the middle of January, but Sophie Sullivan was having a book signing near me, and I'm also like friends with her and her daughter, and so I went to support them and hang out with them, and she ended up giving me the copy of the ARC that she was displaying throughout the event, which I am so grateful for. I was not expecting it, and I literally almost burst out crying. Like, I kid you not, I was so excited about it. So yes, I do have an ARC of A Guide to Being Just Friends, and she signed it, and I don't know if you can see that at all, but she said that I'm like sunshine. The cutest thing in the world. Anyways, so I didn't tab this one because I figured I might as well wait until I get the final copy and I can reread it, and then it can match the other final copies that I have, and this one can just stand on its own as the ARC. But I really enjoyed this one as well. I can't tell if I liked this one better than the second one. My ranking of the books is a bit iffy. I just know that 10 Rules for Faking It is my favorite, and I feel like the slow burn in this one was definitely better than it was in the second book. It just took a lot longer for things to happen. I loved the friends to lovers vibes in this book. I don't necessarily know how to describe this book, but we have our main character Haley, and she owns this like salad bar type of place. She's kind of like not interested in like relationships right now or love. She just wants to focus on her business with no romantic distractions. Her ex messed her up pretty badly. And then we have Wes, who is the third Jensen brother, who I was really happy to see more from in this book because we don't actually see him in the flesh, I don't think, in the first two books. We just get like phone calls with him, so I was really happy when we got to see a full book with him in it and kind of see like his in-person like relationships and dynamics with his brothers, because we got a lot of cameos in this book from the cast of the other two books, which made me just so unbelievably happy. And then Wes has never really understood the fuss about relationships. He's gone on a lot of bad first dates, and also his parents' divorce deeply affected him. It just kind of didn't set up a good example of love for him, so he's just never really worried about it all that much, doesn't think he's ever gonna fall in love or get married, and he doesn't really care. But then Haley and Wes have like a disastrous kind of meet cute, and when Wes goes to apologize for his actions during this meet cute, they strike up a friendship because that's all that they want to have. Just friends, no distractions, but obviously it does not go that way. I just loved this book so much. It was a lot of fun. I loved seeing them being friends, but also obviously they both had feelings that they were trying very hard to fight. It was just a really enjoyable read. I'm so excited to read more books by Sophie Sullivan when they come out. It's gonna be so much fun. Oh, and also the epilogue of this book had me crying. Like, I was actually crying. I was sitting in a room with my parents and they were watching a movie or something on TV, and I was just sitting beside them, just slow dramatic tears falling down my face, and I don't think either of them noticed, but I was crying at the end of this book. It gave me everything that I wanted and more, the perfect conclusion to this trilogy, so I highly recommend reading this companion trilogy. It is so good. Okay, so now for the fantasy books. So the first book I read I actually listened to on audio, and it was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. So I read the first book, Once Upon a Broken Heart, at the very beginning of the year. It was like literally like my third or fourth book of the year, and I ended up really enjoying it. I love the Caraval books. I find a lot of enjoyment and whimsy in them, so I was really excited to kind of read this spin-off series. It just has like a lot of good vibes in it, and it has like my favorite character from the Caraval series in it, so I already knew it was going to be a good time. But I did really enjoy the first book, so I've been anticipating this second novel, and it was so good. I really enjoyed it. It did, however, kind of take me a minute to get into the story because I feel like it just jumps right into things. Like, it doesn't like start off slowly or calmly, like it jumps right into the action. And because I did read the first book at the very beginning of the year, and I'm reading this one basically at the end of the year, it did take me a minute to get into the story and to remember everything and to become accustomed to the world again. I found that I had forgotten a lot of things, and so as they were talking about things, it did end up coming back to me a little bit. And I feel like if I hadn't just read the first book this year, I would have reread it to read this one, but it didn't really affect my overall enjoyment moment of the story, I still really loved it. My favorite thing about this series is kind of like the dynamic and relationship between our main character Evangeline and Jax. Jax is my favorite character from Caraval. I love him so much. I find him so fun to read about. But like I said, this world is just so fun and whimsical. So I really enjoy spending my time in it and with these characters. So I had such a good time reading this book. Gonna be honest, don't remember much about what happens in it, so I'll probably be as equally confused when I read the third book when it comes out, but that's fine. But I am really looking forward to that third book and kind of seeing how everything plays out. But yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Okay, and then I just quickly want to talk about this next one because it is a reread for me. So Gilded by Marissa Meyer. So this is the first book in her like newest duology. It's like a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. I read this book last year when it came out and I did really enjoy it, but it's definitely like my least favorite of her books. It just doesn't captivate me as much as her other series, but it's still enjoyable. Like I still have a good time with it. I decided to listen to the audiobook this time around just because I knew I wouldn't have time to reread it physically before the sequel came out, and I didn't really want to read it physically, so I figured I would try the audiobook because all of Marissa Meyer's books are done by my favorite audiobook narrator, Rebecca Soler, who actually also does Stephanie Garber's books, so that's amazing. I just think she captures characters' voices so well, and she just does an incredibly amazing job. So I knew that I wanted to give this audiobook a whirl. I thought it'd be a fun time, and it was a fun time. I enjoyed the audiobook of it. I think she did a great job. I think I might possibly have enjoyed this book a little bit less with my reread. The first time I read it, I liked the romance between our main characters Serilda and Gild, and I could acknowledge that it happened really quickly and kind of out of nowhere, but it didn't really bother me because I thought it was so cute. But upon rereading it, I didn't enjoy it quite as much. I still enjoy it. I still think they're cute. I'm still rooting for them, but I do think it happened just a little bit too quickly for my liking. But like I said, overall I still enjoyed it. However, my feelings about the ending of the book are still the same as my first time reading it. It was really fun, really captivating, and I feel like it sets up the sequel so well, and I'm so excited to see where the sequel goes and kind of how everything wraps up because that ending is so intense. Like, she does not hold back on what she does. Like, there are a lot of deaths there at the end, and I completely somehow forgot that they happened, and when I got to them, I was not okay. Like, I'm pretty sure the first time I read this book, I texted Lisa about it and I was like, she did not just do that. And then I reread it, and because I had forgotten that it happened, I texted Lisa again and I was like, I cannot believe she just did that. So it's a pretty wild ending, but I'm really excited to read the sequel, and I'm really glad that I did a reread of this one because I feel like I did forget some details, so it was really nice to do a reread. And then the last book, I cannot believe I can actually put this book in a wrap up now because I feel like it's been such a long time coming, but I'm not going to talk about it too much. But it is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. So I am not a high fantasy person. I find high fantasy very difficult, especially when it's from an author that I've never read from before. I typically have an okay time with like Marissa Meyer books, for example, because I've read her books so much before, so I'm kind of used to the way that she writes and everything, but I have not read a single Leigh Bardugo book, so I was very hesitant going into the story. I've owned it for years and I know that it's so hyped up and loved in the book community, so I'm not gonna lie, I was really scared. But it was my 2022 TBR, and it was also the Best Season Books book club pick for the month, which is my book club that I co-host with my friend Alyssa. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, our Twitter is down below. But this was our book pick for November, and so I had to read it, and I read it. I did. I finally did it, and I don't want to say too much about it, like I said, because we haven't done our live show for it yet. We've been kind of slacking this month and are kind of behind in everything. But what I will say is that I did enjoy it, didn't love it, but didn't hate it. Just kind of like, I'm not really middle of the road. I'm kind of maybe just past middle of the road in terms of liking it. Like, I did enjoy it. I really liked the characters, but because it's high fantasy, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't fully understand everything, so I feel like I don't have big enough brain to read fantasy sometimes. But I'm glad that I finally read this one, and I will say that I do plan on reading Crooked Kingdom. I just don't have my hands on it yet, so I will probably prioritize that in the beginning of next year, hopefully, because I don't want to forget everything in this series. That would not be great. So those were all 6 books that I read in the month of November. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Comment down below and let me know what you read in the month of November, if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. Subscribe if you've not yet already, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!